All right, what you're looking at is an original Piker board. That's Piker. It means cheap. I got the word from Howard Stern. He used to call people Pikers when they were cheap. Now, this circuit board would run 4 stepper motors, even though most CNC machines only use 3. The public wanted 4. See, that's how it works. If they don't need 3, they want 4. Now, these 2 transistors over here, they run a relay to turn the power on and off to the Dremel, or a light to tell you it's going to be milling. You have a flashing light, whatever you want. And this connector over here, this went to the limit switches on the machine. So the Piker board had it all. Now, in the back, let's make sure it's in the frame. All right, let me come up a little bit. All right, these are the resistors that are in series with the stepper motor. Now, the whole idea of Piker was you took an AT power supply, you put a load on it. You had to have a load on it or it wouldn't develop voltage. That's one of the tricks. And it was a jumper you had to put on it. And you could get about 13.8, and you could run the motors at 6 inches a minute, which is very fast on a CNC machine. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, it's that simple. Now, these guys on the internet picked on the Piker. Oh, it doesn't use switching supplies. It doesn't. None of them had a machine. None of them ever had a machine. But they'd sit in these groups, and ramble on about stuff they never were going to own, never going to understand. A bunch of them bought a drafting program, and none of them knew how to do any drafting. It was a program that made DXFs, or you could, I think, with an add-on, you could make it an NC files. Anyway, it was so stupid, and I got involved in it. And at some point, I realized that I was dealing with old men that were just bullshit artists, and a few of them that were a little more progressive. They actually ordered my plans. One guy bought a Bridget. He called it Bridget. It was a Bridgeport. He brought it home. He couldn't get it in the house. Put it out in the backyard on a trailer and put tarps on it. That's where Bridget ended up. And if you followed the saga, they would have motors, and they'd spin them with tape on the end of the shafts. I think I'm going to go to servos. The steppers, I don't think are going to quite cut it. They don't have a machine, but they're upgrading their motors, their motor system. So I offered this circuit board, just a bare board, and it was milled. It wasn't etched. Now here's a milled board. Let's see if we can get to shine just the right way. All right. This is milled by one of my machines. This is not mine. This is a customer that when I invented a switching type of controller, he got the schematic from me, and he made, this is one axis. This will drive one motor, and this is basically how it started. This is model 2, and this is how I built it. All right, perf board first. Perf board. All right, build it, test it for weeks, and then it becomes one of these. This is a milled board, and it's not. I also have boards made in Texas that were etched, and they cost me $16.95 each, and then I would double that and sell it. And people said, "Oh, that's too high." No, when you sell a product, you mark it up 3 times. And they would argue that with me. I go read up on marketing. You have like if in a restaurant, you mark up the food 3 times. The first markup is to pay for the food, and then the one pay for the rent, and then for the staff. You mark it up 3 times. That's the simplicity of, in other words, how to charge and set prices and that. And people that never had a business, talking out of their ass, tell you, oh, you should sell that board for 20 bucks. You're getting it for 16.95. All right. What about shipping? Oh, you got it. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna ship it. Then I'm gonna take it back from you when you wire it wrong. I'm gonna have arguments with you because you put the wrong type of transistors in there. I couldn't believe the support time it took. Now, what happened, what I realized was even my people, once they spun the motors, no machine yet, they would set up the Piker with the AT supply, and there'll be emails back and forth. They'd have the wrong supply. Anyway, finally they'd get it working, they'd spin the motors. That was it. You never hear from them again. So I started only selling the motor board, the Piker, to people that bought the plans. Because I was just getting motor orders. See, a lot of people figured out how to make my machine, but they were too lazy to make a circuit board. And then they needed support, and then they could get extra, like, I bought motors from that other guy, but he's on vacation, and I need the color codes of the wires and which ones are L1, L2, whatever we used back then. Yeah, I was doing support for somebody else's stuff because they were on vacation. If you didn't do it, they'd go badmouth you on the internet. This is what I went through. But I originally called it a Piker board. And down in here, you see these capacitors, and they're on the step input. And you want to get rid of any transits that are on the step input. And that's what they do. And there's one that's across the B+, just to smooth it up. But I take that back. This is across the chip to prevent glitches. Here they are. They're 390 picofarads. And what they do is any spikes from the computer that are on the step signal, it quelches them. Yes, it suppresses them. And I put a lot of work into it. And it's almost, nobody ever killed a Piker. They burnt the transistor out. One guy says, it's like impossible to kill it. I said, that's the whole idea. I really put a lot of work into it. And but it was funny. One of the guys, he basically, he did what the engineers told me I couldn't do. Let me do it again. That's etched. I mean, that's milled by a milling machine. One of my machines. The guy asked me for the schematic, and I gave it to him, and he sent me this back. I think he did make one mistake. But anyway, I would get letters from engineers, and it would be on a letterhead from Boeing or whatever, and then they would spell out in the letter that it's impossible to mill a circuit board. And there were companies that sold circuit board milling machines. This is how stupid they were. And I call them out. And then I started putting the letters on the website and making fun of them. And they really didn't like that. I started getting like aggravated because I was doing the work. I was doing more than my share. And it wasn't going my way because there wasn't enough markup in the product to handle the aggravation. That's what it is. See, when you're making a lot of money with something, like a hot dog vendor, he's selling you a hot dog. He marked it up. He's heating it up in a truck. He's there for only a few hours. And you come up to him and you say, you know that hot dog I got yesterday didn't taste right. And the guy immediately gets you out another hot dog and he apologizes because he's making so much money with the markup. What I was doing was I wanted to help everybody and get a milling machine in their hands, a CNC machine, so they could learn on. And all these guys in the group didn't know shit from Shinola. And I had fights with them. And I finally got kicked out. I told somebody off. And they never went on to build anything. And then a couple of the guys sent me letters, emails, telling me I was absolutely right. They were playing make-believe. I didn't understand it. I sort of knew from my childhood that certain people would make stuff up. But when you're actually dealing with people that will tell everybody different lies about like they said, his circuit board is a copy of NASA stepping motor. And I found that. No, it's not. It's not the same. It's unbelievable. All this stuff that, oh, he does this or he does that. And the reason I went the cheapest route was the machine mills along at 6 inches a minute, which is slow once you know what you're doing. And there were a lot of guys that bought TIGs and Shurlines. And then they would put it up on eBay with a ding in they crashed it. And then they realized they were in over their head. And then other guys they produced this machine that looked like a hang glider with all really expensive linear rails and stuff. And I would like I show the guys in my group, and they were like, you're being really negative with other people. I said, no, these people picked on me. They designed a machine that didn't work right. Now they want to sell the parts off real expensive because and they have a big long letter like I bought these from the special place, but it's all a big piece of shit because as the machine gets bigger, you have to make it stiffer. Well, that causes you got to use steel. Well, these machines were built like a hang glider. If you've ever seen a hang glider, yeah, they were built like that. The person didn't realize when you press down on a piece of metal that's, say, 15 inches across, that if it's a certain thickness, it flexes. You don't see it, but when a milling machine's operating, you see it in the work. And it's like a diving board. You draw a diving board and you show it to someone, and they don't know it's a diving board. And it looks stiff to them in the drawing. But in reality, when you walk out on a diving board, it starts to bend. And all materials have a certain length they can be at before they start to bend at, say, 1 pound. And instinctively, I knew all this stuff. And I took window channel from the storefront, they used to call it. And I made machines out of that. And then people started saying, oh, it's just a regular window frame. No, it's not. It's a storefront. See, they were shooting from the hip all over. They were shooting so many bullshit lies about what I was doing. It made it almost impossible for me to make any money after a while. It was going good there for a while. It dropped off. And I kept coming up with new ideas, new machines. And after a while, they started to disappear. But the craze of CNC machines dropped off. I mean, it died. And I stayed in it. I make a couple sales a month. And then 3D printers came along. And I was actually working on a machine that shot wax out. And you could, like, 3D print a piece of wax, like a part out of wax. And now you do your lost wax. Look it up, lost wax. In other words, you have a crucible, and you make a mold with this piece of wax that's the same as the part, and you pour in your metal, your aluminum, and when it hits the wax disappears. It's lost. It disappears. Now, when it cools, the part is made out of aluminum. And I went and contacted these guys doing 3D printing, and I said, figure out how to get the 3D printer to work with wax. And they were like, who would use that? Well, if you want to make a part out of aluminum, you make it out of wax. And then you put it in the crucible, and you pour the part. And now you got it out of aluminum. Versus there are metal extruders now. I think you bake it in the oven. There's all ways around all this stuff. But this is the first product. I showed you the first article I did. And this is the actual first product. And there was a 3-motor unit. And I went to 4 because they kept asking me. They have no use for 4 motors. But they kept emailing me. Oh, I'm looking for a board that's got 4. And then one of my competitors added a 4th one on his board too. That was the other thing. I don't want to go real deep into it. But you come up with these ideas, and you're the only one for a couple weeks. And then other people, the make-believe people show up in all the conferences. And there was one guy, he was a grifter. He was collecting money for back gears. He was going to put a back gear set on a certain lathe. He took all the money and he disappeared. Then he got into buying this other guy's motor controller, putting it in a box, taking pictures of it, doing the same thing. Well, I went on the internet and I went looking. I found a website that used the software the guy was using on his website. And he made a mistake of using his real name and his real address. And I got it. And I gave it to somebody else. And then that guy became like the frickin' hero. And then when I said something one, he goes, I don't want to talk about that guy anymore. But in other words, I figured out who the guy was. But he was using this other guy's controller, or motor controller, and they say it's a driver. The controller is actually the software. That's the other argument. They like to nitpick. They don't have a machine, but they like to nitpick some of the terminology. And he took this other guy's controller, put it in a metal box, and took orders, and then never fulfilled the orders. And I located him. He made a mistake on the internet. He put his real name and address. But he would drop my name all the time. Oh, it's so simple. Oh, Kleinbauer's doing it. Kleinbauer did this. Kleinbauer did that. And they used to call me cranky. See, my website, it's still up there. It holds the email. It's called Crank Organ. It's based on that Crank Organ. That was my first booklet. And yeah, I have a lot of firsts. I just want to show you some of the stuff. And, you know, you may be getting into it. Don't expect too much. You may hit it big. You could hit it big. And you'll say, it was a piece of cake. That's sometimes how it goes. It just falls into place. But in my case, there were a bunch of jealous people. They're talking about building a machine, but they never been. And then some that attempted it had no idea what they were doing. And they were putting their machines, real expensive, linear rails and stuff, on eBay. And then I was taking the pictures and showing it to my group guys. And they got kind of annoyed with me because, you know, I was showing them that. They're like, well, you really shouldn't pick apart someone else's work. And is it from Bambi? If you can't say something good about someone, don't say anything at all. Somebody cryptically left a message about that, because I would pick on those guys because I knew who they were, and they were beating on me. I'm trying to come up with a simple machine that you can actually cut parts on. And you can actually mill circuit boards on it. My first models. And then there were guys that were, one guy took Bakelite sheets, and he made the machine go out and drill a bunch of holes. And then he put rivets in it and flare the rivets. And then he would wire circuits to the rivets, like really old tube amplifiers. And he goes, I'll use your machine to drill the holes. Of course, he never sent me any pictures. See, that was the problem. A lot of people didn't have digital cameras originally. There was no movies. You really couldn't afford to run a movie. If you had a website and you had a video of your machine operating, and someone watched it a few times, that was $300-400 originally. That's how much data they were using. And I kept getting $1,000 bills, bills for $1,000 a month for, I had a website that was open to the public, and they were coming in, and the foreign people were just going to my website, drawing my machines up, and posting the plans on my website. Or conference, and I had to work around to get rid of those guys. You know, look at me, I can copy what you're doing. A lot of Russians, you know. Oh, it just, every week it was something else went wrong. And like I said, I sell the circuit board, and it takes tip 120s, and a guy would put tip 120s in the board, 121s, and then tell me it didn't work. And I'd get back to it, track it down, and, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not. So, and then this connector right here, make sure I'm in frame. Yeah, just a parallel port connector. This is a female. I had a guy put the male will drop right in here, and he said, your numbering system is all off on your diagram. So I'm tracking it down. I'm like, and then I said, what kind of connector? He thought the one with the pins sticking out is the female because of the cover. It goes over the cover. He thought that made it a female. It took a lot of emails to realize the guy was an idiot. He's arguing with me and he's wrong. And then I started thinking, when they started putting the wrong transistors on the board, oh, the one I put, it handles more current. I'm like, you know, you're redesigning something I designed, and it's over designed. And then they put the wrong transistor in. It fits. But what happens is it's the wrong. There's an NPN transistor and a PNP, basic, and they'd have. I think these are NPNs. They put PNPs in. They don't work. Well, why don't they work? I bought a batch of them. You didn't buy what I told you to buy. Well, why is it my fault? You know? But I just wanted to show you this. Yeah. It's a piker. Boy, did I name it right from the beginning. I think that's it. All right. That's it.